Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 345 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast on all of the internet. My name is David Howe, and boy, oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest joining on today's episode of the program. Please welcome for the very first time the wonderful Deeb. How's it going, Deeb?
Good, thank you.
Of course.
Thanks for that introduction.
Yes, I'm glad to have you on. We've been mutuals on Blue Sky for a little bit right now. As I understand, this is your first podcast, so I'm very honored to have you on our show. And we are going to be talking today, Deeb, all about Android handhelds, and more specifically, the AYN Thor. The AYN Thor has really blown up over the past, I'd say, 6 months or so. Every once in a while, one of these emulation handhelds really gets a hold on the general gaming populace, and this seems to be the one that a lot of people are really latching onto. And then in addition to that, just the future of ARM-based handhelds, Android handhelds is looking really bright in a lot of ways and a little dark in some others. So we're going to be talking all about that in the main topic of this show. In addition to that, we have lots of news and rumors that have been happening over the last week. GDC has just wrapped up, and that has a lot of news that has come along with it. Lots of game updates and whatnot. Mario Day happened, and we got a new overview trailer for Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, among many other games, and much, much more. But before we get into all that, how are you doing, Deeb? How was your past week?
It was good. Yeah, it's been a little crazy, a little busy. Got a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, it's been good though.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I'm glad to hear that. We love an inconsequential week.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I got 2 teenagers. So
yeah.
They keep my hands full.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, it's good. You know, it's good. They're doing good. We're doing good. So yeah, we're in a good spot right now.
Glad to hear that. Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy week over here. If I'm being completely honest, I was in total zombie mode this morning. And by this morning, I mean literally all day until we met in the Zoom call. But this weekend was pretty crazy. It's like South by Southwest is happening down here in Austin right now. And I didn't really go out and do a ton of South by stuff, but I did get some tickets from a friend of mine who's a projectionist who was, cool enough to hook me up with some movie tickets. So that was cool. What else happened? My friend Leslie is getting married this upcoming weekend and chose me to be her maid of honor. So I threw a bachelorette party for us this weekend. It was pretty low key. Leslie's like a pretty low key person, so it wasn't like too crazy or anything, but there was a decent amount of drinking involved. So I feel like I'm kind of recovering from that a little bit right now. Yeah. And then, I guess the other thing was the Oscars were last night. So that was a ton of fun. And, I got back from a screening of this movie called Headz that I saw at South by Southwest at like 8:30 or so. And I got over to my friend's house. So we all like started the Oscars like pretty late, and that show already goes pretty long. So, we were able to like skip through commercials and stuff to make it go a little bit faster. But nice. I feel like the Oscars for us wrapped up at like midnight. Okay. So it was just a late night, pretty much every night of the week this past weekend. So I'm a little out of it, but I'm really excited to talk all about the gaming news and rumors and the AYN Thor. It's a device that I love so much, and I know that you've been enjoying as well. And shout out Leslie. By the time we do our next episode, you will be married, and I'll have hopefully come up with a speech for what I'm going to say at your wedding. Got it right.
Have you done one of these before? Is this going to be your first time?
This is my first time as certainly as a maid of honor, but as a member of the bridal wedding party at all. You know what I mean? I've never really I've never had to give a speech at a wedding. I usually just show up and get drunk. So
I mean, you could still do that. But
yeah.
You gotta talk.
I'll just have to come up with something first. And I'm not using ChatGPT, so I'm gonna have to write it myself.
That's good.
Before we get into the news here, we do have a little bit of shout outs that we would like to talk about from last week's episode. We had Sarah XCII on to talk all about Pokopia. That was a super fun episode. We got lots of love over on social media. We put up some reels over there on TikTok and Instagram. So thanks everybody over there. But over on Discord, there's a couple people to shout out. First of all, Sina said, shout out Monolith Fiji for properly pronouncing Kensuke. And I appreciate that, Sina. I do pride myself on hopefully being able to properly pronounce Japanese names. Also, The Huge and Hermit Style both said that the episode solidified their choice in getting Pokopia. The Huge said, such a fun episode that also reaffirmed my decision to cave. And big shout out to the guest for inspiring me to start binders of Snorlax cards and dog Pokemon cards. That's right. Sarah XCII said that she collects horse Pokemon cards. So that caused
Yes, I listened to the episode and it sold me as well.
Really?
Actually, almost right after I listened, I went and bought it. I've only played it for a few hours, but yeah.
Nintendo's got to start
and
giving us a commission.
I guess, like hashtag, bring some horse Pokemon. I don't know.
Yeah. We're trying to start the
That's weird.
right
There's
now.
none.
It's the year of the horse, for God's sake.
Yes, okay.
Over on YouTube, it was J. Cruel77 said, really want to get Pokopia. It just sucks for me that it's $800 Canadian since I don't want the new Switch. I did tell Sarah I'd get it by summer to prepare for Gen 10 games. It just sucks you have to be careful with funds these days since Trump f***ed up the world and everything is so expensive now. No lie detected there for me. But it definitely is. I think every new game that comes out, it becomes more and more worth having a Switch to. In response to whether or not there is a faster mode of transportation, as we were talking about being able to transform into a horse Pokemon, Radioactive 369 said, there is. It's a Graveler. You get roll and the ability to break blocks while doing so, but you also get sprint while doing it, so it effectively triples your movement speed. So that's good to know. I don't think any of us had gotten to the Graveler by the time we did the episode last week, but it's nice to know that there are some better movement options. It feels like they really do dole out abilities throughout the entire course of the game.
Yeah, so with Pokopia, my son picked it up like a week ago when it came out, and so he'd been playing it, so I'd been watching him play it, and like I said, I listened to the show and I was like, okay, I got to get into this. So I downloaded it, and you get the ability there. You're the Ditto, and you're like it's funny because I'm watering the grass, right? My wife's watching me and she's watching me play, and she's like, well, what's he doing? Like, is he? How did you make that grass green? I'm like, oh, he got the power of the Squirtle, and he's and she's like, is he throwing up on the grass? And I'm like, well, yeah, but like, she's like, that's gross. I can't watch this,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I'm playing it, my son's watching me, and same thing. I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I just got to go around and make everything green. And so I'm doing that. And he's like, you can make it rain later, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, oh, really? You mean I don't have to do this?
I know. I started playing the game and I was like, oh my God, this game is going to suck. I got to throw up everywhere to make everything green. And then I was like, oh, okay, wait, it does rain. So like it streamlines some of that. So now when I'm playing, I don't worry about the stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I'm going to assume that the game will give me an ability later on that causes some of these issues.
Yeah, it seems like they did think of that.
Yeah, absolutely. But
quality of life.
Anyway, thanks very much to everybody for all the shout outs. If you would like to be shouted out next week, listener, please drop us a line. I think the best place to do that is right down in the comments of the YouTube version of this episode. But you could also leave a review over on Apple. You can hit us up on social media. We do post reels and shorts now. So commenting over there is a great way to get in touch with us as well. We'll be sure to shout you out next week. And if you could, while you're over there on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We are still a pretty small podcast, even though we've been doing this for a while. And anytime you can share the show around and like and subscribe and put the notification bell on, that does wonders for the algorithm. So we would love to have your patronage over there. And we'll have a lot more at the very end of the show on all the ways that you can get in touch with us. But I think all of that out of the way, I think it's time to get into the news. You ready to do this, Deeb? We ready to go?
Go.
Let's freaking
talk
go.
about it.
We are going to start with a little bit more Pokopia news right here at the top, because this game is a certified hit. I think a lot of people were expecting this. I was caught a little off guard by how strongly this game has been performing, given that it is a spinoff. Not every Pokemon spinoff does really well, but this hit that exact right formula of the Animal Crossing fans, the Minecraft fans, the, I guess, dozen or so Viva Pinata fans that are out there, at least that are young enough to be buying Pokemon games these days. It seems that it has sold 2.2 million copies over its first weekend, and I think at least 1 million of those were in Japan alone, which is huge. So, for Japan, getting 1 million sales in the first week is definitely big. This is really great to see. I said this last episode, not every game that we cover on the show I end up playing past the initial week or so that I play it for coverage on the podcast, but this one has definitely stuck with me. And I've put a lot of time into, going through and being really thorough in all the new areas that I've been unlocking. What about you, Deeb? Like you said, this was initially a game for your kid. Have you found yourself going back to it more and more?
Yeah, I mean, so we're actually, you listed all the fans of, the game is for, but we're Dragon Quest Builders fans. So like for us, it was like, that was a series that we thought was done.
Right.
So seeing this was like, oh great, a new Dragon Quest Builders game.
Yeah.
And my son he's into the Minecraft and Pokemon obviously. But yeah, so it getting that, getting that experience again, but with the spin they've done on it is great. Like I said, I just started it this weekend. I've only played it, a little bit, but like you said, I think this could be a game that I'll keep in rotation for a long time.
Yeah, totally.
It's a cozy get in bed, just pull out the Switch and play it until you start to fall asleep type of game.
Well, you say that, but that is not how my experience has been.
Oh, really?
It's like, I'm always like, oh yeah, I'll check in on the island and I'll do a little bit of tasks and then I just realize I've been playing the game for like 3 or 4 hours and I'm like, yo, this has got to stop. It's become quite a hardcore experience for me, which is something that like when I tried to go back to Animal Crossing was not my experience in returning to that game. I don't know. It's just
like Animal Crossing, like it has like, it seems like it's set up for shorter play sessions. It is kind of hard to do more than, you go and do your daily rounds.
Right.
You go check out the stores, check this, check everything, check your mail, and then you're kind of done, unless there's like a big project you're doing or you're doing time skip. I think it's set up. Whereas this seems like, it's like a mobile game, there's always something. It's like there's another task for you to do. Here's another task for you to do. There's always something, but
I don't know. They got it down. It's like crack, man. I saw a video just the other day of it was like some content creator that was playing and he was he's just playing the game at night and he was like, man, the sky looks so pretty in this game. And he was like, wait a second. And then he like opened his blinds and realized it was the morning. And he was like, oh, fuck. I've been playing this game literally all night long because the game does have a day-night cycle, obviously. So that was really funny to hear. But
the day-night cycle, is it synced to real time?
Yeah, it is. It's real time, just like Animal Crossing. Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't even realize that because I played it mostly like in one session. So
Right.
Okay.
I think it obviously is the same Dragon Quest Builders team, at least the team from Koei Tecmo that worked on the second one. And, but you do see all those little additional things they did to Nintendo-fy it to give it the Animal Crossing treatment. I don't know. I just think they did a really good job with this game, and I'm really happy that they found success. I imagine that it's going to be a huge system seller, to be honest. We talked about it a little bit last week, but the more and longer than it's been out and people are really singing its praises, the more people are getting FOMO and actually buying the console. So I think it was a smart move on Nintendo's part to make this a Switch 2 exclusive. But we'll go ahead and move on to our next bit of news. And this involves Mario Day. That's March 10th this past week. And there were lots of little giblets of news that dropped, one of which was all about the Yoshi game that's coming out. And it now has a release date. And that release date is May 21st, 2026. We got a new trailer for it. And it's got a little bit of gameplay stuff. It showed off some of what you can do with the game. It seems like there is also a little bit of customizability in this game. It feels like Nintendo's really leaning into that right now. Obviously, we see that with Pokopia, but going to stuff like, Tears of the Kingdom and whatever. It feels like they're really trying to put their hands in with the creative side of video gaming, right? So you can find these enemies and you can give them names and you can unlock all these different things that'll change the book or whatever. So we still don't know exactly what makes this game super unique compared to a lot of other Yoshi games, other than the aesthetic aspects and the kind of collectible, aspects of collecting all the enemies and whatnot. But it does look gorgeous. And every new thing I see about this game makes me want to get it more and more. The only question for me is, am I going to enjoy it as like a full ass man? I think that's really my question at this point.
I mean, I know that like Yoshi, they're baby games for babies, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm buying them. I don't care. And I heard this one's going to be $60 too.
Is that true?
Nice. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Really?
I can't say it's true, but I did read that. That would be nice.
I'm going to look that up. Let me see if it's on the, let me see if it has a
I know you guys
pre-order
had
page
some
yet.
discussions about, pricing and Mario Tennis and, how that was a $70 game and a hard sell, but I think it's $60. This would go down a lot easier.
Well, we'll have to follow that. If it is $60, I think that would move a lot more units, obviously, and I'd love to see them releasing some Switch 2 exclusive games at that price, especially if they know it's going to be a little bit harder of a sell. Right now, I did just check the eShop page, and it is not currently available for pre-order. It has a release date on it, but you can't purchase it yet. So it seems like Nintendo's being a little cagey with the price.
Yeah, I think when it was announced, some people saw some pre-orders go up or something. That's what I was reading. So
interesting.
So I don't know if it's like on retail, but hopefully that's true. Because at $70, this would be a harder sell. And $10 might not seem like a lot, but just mentally, when you see that adds up quickly.
Interesting.
And then you really have to be pretty choosy with what you're playing. But I think that $6 price point is I think people would enjoy that. But yeah, I agree. The art style looks fantastic. Like I know we're never going to get another Yoshi's Island. I know people always want that, but I've enjoyed the Yoshi games for what they are. They're always they're fun.
They're not all great, but I think like Woolly World is amazing. And obviously
I've got a Woolly World poster right behind me there. You can see, that was the promo from Toys R Us. So I'm a big fan of the games. They're fun. My little nephew, he loves Yoshi, and I think that Yoshi is important for, getting some of the younger games in, playing the younger kids and playing Nintendo games, getting them in there and getting them kind of with my kids. It was the same thing. They grew up on Wii U, that's the console we had. And so, they played a ton of, Woolly World, and, my daughter has a 3DS, the Poochie, little Poochie amiibo and that one, and that's all collector's thing now. I'm like, if you don't want that, and she's like, no, it's fine.
Treat it right so you can flip it later.
Yeah.
Don't be dragging it through the dirt.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great series. So
absolutely.
I'm excited for this.
Well, there's some other news from Mario Day as well. There was a new Lego set that we don't know exactly what it's going to be, but we do know that it actually has Mario minifigs now. I know all the previous Mario sets have had that weird electronic amalgam of a weird Mario that I don't think anybody really likes. So it's nice to see an official Mario minifig, and I think all the Zelda sets have been pretty cool. There was a new trailer for Mario Brothers Wonder Meetup in Belleville Park, the Nintendo Switch 2 edition. So that's coming out pretty soon. I'll definitely be picking this up. It seems like much of it is multiplayer, as we've been saying, which doesn't have me as excited, but I still will be picking this up, and it will be nice to be playing this game in full 4K.
I think you get Rosalina.
Yeah.
Like a new Flower Power, and then the graphic updates. I heard it's going to be true 4K.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's got
the multiplayer stuff is, like I said, I'm also not too interested in that, but who knows, maybe I'll, get on with my kids and we'll play a little bit.
Yeah. I think with kids, this would be a lot of fun. And I think it does have some checklist stuff in the single player that you can do as you're playing. So that'll be nice just to replay it with a little bit more content in the single player. I think, because I've been wanting to replay this game anyway. So I think that's
I'll bring it up later, but that's one of the games I've been playing on my Thor.
Right. That's cool. Very good. And then lastly, obviously the Mario movie is coming up, Mario Galaxy movie. There was a website that released as well for that. I'm kind of not poking through it too much right now, although it does seem really fun and interactive. I'm not poking through it too much because I'm actually pretty unspoiled with this movie so far, and I usually get a lot of stuff spoiled for me. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go into this pretty virginal. Bought a bunch of tickets.
That might be something you want to look at later, because when I was looking at it, it's almost like a guide that has all the different locations and things in there. But it reminds me of what I like about that site, though. It reminds me of in the 90s when you'd get those what's the one that's still up? I know that there's some movie website that's still up that people,
Space Jam.
Bring up all. Space Jam.
Yes.
It reminds me of that. It's definitely inspired by that. It has just the 90s. It's kind of boxed in, low resolution. And, I love it.
Anyway, that's there for you to check out. If you're interested in that, definitely do. Lots of fun stuff for Mario Day. We'll move on to our next bit of news, and this is kind of a roundup of some GDC news. As we said, GDC just happened out in SF, and there's a few things to talk about. First of all, I think the developers of Donkey Kong Bonanza were there and did a talk. Some pretty interesting tidbits from there. The producer and programmer were present. They thought that the elephant transformation was a little OP. And to be honest, they're not wrong. A lot of speedrunners, especially when they're playing that game, get the elephant transformation and then immediately break the game wide open. But I do think that that's part of the fun of Donkey Kong Bonanza, is quite literally breaking the game as you're playing it, right? So I never had too much of a problem with that. Something else they said was that they redesigned Donkey Kong for Donkey Kong Bonanza and then eventually moved that into Mario Kart World. So even though Mario Kart World came out first, it started with Bonanza. And we also knew that this was originally developed as a Switch 1 game that eventually moved to Switch 2. And they were also happy to see that Donkey Kong is making people happy, but they cannot talk about future projects at this time. I do really hope that there is a future for Donkey Kong. Obviously, I think if this team, truly was just the Mario Odyssey team, they're probably working on the next 3D Mario game, I would imagine, but I think it would be pretty cool if eventually they merge these two series and had kind of a Mario and Donkey Kong sort of adventure, now that they've done both. So that could be cool. Maybe that's what the next 3D Mario is. Who really knows?
I was wondering if in that game, if was the final boss going to be Mario? Right.
It's
kind of. I was wondering.
No, I feel like that the era of Mario being the bad guy or them being enemies is like pretty much over, and now they're like pals. Yeah, they're like playing tennis together all the time and shit like that.
Maybe I could also see them like now that they put all that work into that engine. Potentially, they could pass it off to like another, second party developer or something. We'll get, another game in the series of Majora's Mask, Tears Kingdom type thing where it's why not just do it again, when I think that could work and it'd be, I think that'd be an easy sell.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that, too, it's, I don't think that this game coming out means that 2D Donkey Kong games are finished either. And I love the 2D Donkey Kong games. So I'd love to see another entry in the Country series, whether being developed by Retro or by somebody else. I would just love more 2D Donkey Kong. But we're going to move on to some other stuff here. Also at GDC was a new build of Elden Ring. And I know a lot of people have been very concerned about how the Elden Ring port has been looking recently, but hands-on at GDC from a number of different outlets and whatnot have said that the game is looking a lot better as of late. So I would imagine, if not in the next couple months, then by summer, say June, there's a big direct or something like that, we'll probably get a release of Elden Ring Tarnished Edition for the Switch. And hopefully we hear a little bit more as well about whatever they're doing with Dusk Bloods. I imagine that these two games probably share an engine. So if they're working really hard on Elden Ring, then hopefully that means that Dusk Bloods is also getting optimized and is not too far behind. Are you a FromSoft guy, Deeb?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm like a diehard fan, but I put a lot of time into Sekiro. I didn't beat it. I hit a wall, but I really enjoyed my time with it. And when the PS5 came out, there was the Dark Souls remake, Demon's Souls remake. And I enjoyed that. And then Elden Ring is the one that, really got me into it. And I played quite a bit of it, the original release. I never finished it and I didn't play the expansion. And when I heard it was going to be a Switch 2 game, I was hoping it was going to be like a launch window game because I was thinking, oh, that'd be perfect.
I think we all assumed it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been waiting, but you heard some of the reports and whatnot. And actually I have the PC version. I tried it on Steam Deck and it never did run very well on there. So I wasn't too surprised that that it wasn't running great on Switch 2, but I'm willing to wait. I'm always willing to wait, if that means a better product. So I watched the video. There's some gameplay video out there. It looks great. Yeah. Looks like it's running smooth. So want too much more of a wait.
I feel like the game has never really been super optimized just in general on any of the platforms. So hopefully this kind of could even carry over to some of the other platforms if they're doing stuff under the hood to get this game to run better on Switch. And then lastly with GDC, there was some updates from both Valve and Microsoft about both of their home console, PC, hybrid sort of things that they have coming out pretty soon. Firstly, Microsoft talked about Project Helix. They had some benchmark stuff there, which is kind of interesting to see. I didn't really read too much into that, but the tech stuff is there for all the nerds if you want to check that out. We heard a little bit from the new head of the gaming division at GDC that week. As we talked about last week, we heard that might be the case. And then also Valve did reveal their verification method, I suppose, for the Steam machine. If you'll know anything about the Steam Deck, they have a deck verified program just to let people know that games hit a certain threshold of quality standard for that. It's kind of all over the place and it's not really something I ever look at, to be honest. Like if it's going to be, I look at other third-party stuff when I'm trying to see what's going to run well on Steam because, or on Steam Deck specifically, because so often, those are more recommendations than they are hard rules. A lot of stuff that is unsupported, I end up being able to run pretty well on the deck.
Yeah, I notice a lot of times when you look at the, you see like a yellow or whatever it is, you look and it's like, oh, some of the text is small.
Right, that's like, it. Yeah.
Okay, that's,
Or sometimes it'll say unsupported
runs,
because like it's made for VR, but it can be played in 2D, and they just like, you know what I mean? There'll be all these like weird little caveats, and it's like, and I imagine machine is going to be the same. Like I think a lot of stuff is going to play, but they did say that it's like to get the verification badge, it has to base run at 1080p and 30 FPS. So obviously they said this is going to be a 4K 60 capable console. I do think that's still going to be true, with some FSR, with some upscaling and whatever. But at the very least, 1080p gaming, I'm usually okay with, especially for big AAA games. But either way, I think once this thing comes out, it's going to be pretty modular. Also, they did make a joke in there about how they're looking for people selling RAM, and if anybody has any, they should let them know. I think that was a joke, but I think it did make people a little nervous.
DDR5 upstairs, just saying. I actually been sitting on that. That's actually my retirement.
Yeah. As of now, they said the Steam Machine is coming out in 2026, but we'll have to see what happens with the Rampapocalypse. But
and then Project Helix, I haven't been following it too much because I'm not like new consoles. Like I think that stuff's really exciting, but everything I see about that, I'm like, it's PC, right? Like it just looks like it's just I know they're saying it might run Xbox games, but like everything else I've seen, it seems like it's a PC. It seems like it's more like the Steam Machine than something we've seen from Microsoft before.
I mean, I think the difference is that it will play Xbox native games that aren't PC games as well. So like all the backwards compatible stuff that's currently on Xbox,
it'll run those.
It'll run that as well. So it's like an Xbox with a PC added onto it, essentially, is kind of what it seems like, right? So I'm not interested in the Helix at this point. I think I'm pretty much done with Microsoft at this time.
Yeah.
But like,
and it used to be, like these consoles were, $300, $400. You could, over, a few years, you could get the three main consoles. But now that you're hearing Steam Machine, $900,000, you're hearing, the Project Helix, I heard more than that, $1,000, $1,200. So it's just like, the days of having more than one of these is really, it's gone. It doesn't make sense anymore.
I agree.
And it's going to be hard for me. Like to me, it just seems like PC is just going to be the most, the platform with the most choice, most games, most options, most flexibility, especially, when you look at these different devices you can run them on. So it's going to be a hard sell for me. Any of the next consoles coming up, like they're really going to have. I heard you guys were discussing, I think, how Sony is going to be pulling back some of their PC titles, and that makes sense from that perspective because it's like if I know that the PlayStation games are coming out on PC in 2 years, why would I get the next PlayStation? At that point, so I can see why they're they might be a little worried there because the way it's looking like it's three different companies selling their own PCs, with a proprietary storefront. So.
Well,
I'd like to see something stand out,
Well, speaking of PC, let's use that as a way to move into our next bit of news here. And this is about some new tech that was shown off from Nvidia today, the day we're recording, which is Monday, March 16th. They showed off their new form of DLSS at GDC. And this is... obviously we've talked about DLSS before. The Switch 2 uses DLSS to upscale games, and there's also Frame Gen that's been added into DLSS recently. It stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling, and mostly it's a way to just get more resolution bump. Have a game run at a lower resolution so you get better performance, and then it looks better on your system. But the new version of DLSS, DLSS 5, seems to be doing a little bit more, and it seems like it's got a little bit of a layer of Gen AI on top of everything. I've got a video up for the video watchers right now. This was released by Nvidia themselves, but I do know that Digital Foundry also covered this. And you'll see, whenever they have this mode on, it really looks like the yassified version of a lot of these characters that you see online, where a lot of like the edgelord, like gooners would be like, I made this character hot, or I made this character look better. And it's just usually, puckering up the lips and adding eyeshadow and whatnot. And so it really looks like they're leaning into this Gen AI thing for DLSS 5, which is a huge shame to see, but also not surprising, given that NVIDIA is really leading the charge on this AI revolution right now and is building all the data centers and is really doing everything they can to push their model out onto the masses.
Sure.
This is really distressing to me.
Yeah.
And I really don't like to see this. I mean, obviously, this is something you could toggle on and off. You don't have to have it on. But like when we're talking about whether or not the Steam machine is even going to come out this year because of a lack of RAM available, this is where it's all going. To bullshit like this, right? Like stuff that really nobody wants. And it's like, it's going to be much higher processing power on your computer in order to run it. It's going to be pulling resources, as we said, from these data centers. And it really makes the game look a lot worse in a lot of ways. You know, there's more I could say about some of this, but I want to get your initial impressions. What were your thoughts when you saw some of this from Nvidia?
So I hadn't seen the news until you mentioned it, and I was like, oh, I should pull this up. You know, look at this. So this is completely my, you know, I haven't even seen the reaction online, and my reaction's exactly in line with yours. I'm like, okay, this is like the soap opera effect. You know, like when you're watching, like, you know, people turn on the motion smoothing and stuff, and they're like, oh, it looks so much better. It's smoother, and it's like, no, it doesn't look better. You know, it's you're completely lost the magic.
Yeah,
you know, you're watching these games, and it just looks like it makes it look like, like you said, like yassified, makes it look. It
looks porny. Like all the characters look like porn. Like AI porn.
It doesn't look good.
Yeah,
like it doesn't. Like I don't look at this and think like, oh, this is, you know, something I want to play and excited about. It just makes it look, you know, drab. Very very just generic. Everything looked, you know, you just had this. It seemed like any amount of artistic vision or anything that there was just gone. You know, just stripped. So I mean, I know it's just a demo, and like I could. You know, to just not be totally negative, like I could see specific titles, you know, like some kind of lifelike effect like this might work, you know, but for the vast majority of games, this isn't what I want to see.
Well, even with the stuff with the character models that's been happening, you know, even with that turned off, and if you're looking at just what they're doing with environments, even then, it completely changes the color temperature of the scene. It changes the lighting. And it's just like, it's completely going against whatever the artistic, you know, intent of these designers was, right? And so it's GDC is so fucking weird to me because it's like I feel like it's always been a place for game developers to come together and talk about their newest tech, talk about their methods. But I feel like over the last like 5-10 years, as like these tech companies have been getting more and more involved, and AI has really taken off and has really taken a hold in these things, you're starting to see all this like anti-developer stuff happening at GDC as well. And I know it's pissing off a lot of people over there, right? And so it's like, it's just really distressing to me. And it's really distressing to me to see Digital Foundry go to bat for this, because I watched Digital Foundry's video on this earlier, and it was Ollie from Digital Foundry and Rich from Digital Foundry, the creator. And they're in a hotel room at GDC, and they're talking about this, and they're like, it just looks obviously so much better. And they're just like sucking Nvidia's dick. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, did they pay you off? Like, it's just so not like Digital Foundry to me.
That's the
right?
video.
Like
that's a video I watched as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, like, you know, I know that, you know, you can get caught up into the tech, and they're talking like, oh, it looks, you know, like, oh, it's like just skipping 2 generations. And I'm just like, I don't know who this is for.
Right.
You know, like I don't know anybody who really wants this, who wants their games to look like that. Like I think just because you can doesn't mean you should. You know, it's like I think like realism is really overrated. You know, there's no. I just
and like Resident Evil Requiem, the game that they're showing off, like looks incredible already. Like you don't need this, you know. Like
no.
Anyway, I do know that John Lenneman from Digital Foundry posted something on Blue Sky, which has now been deleted, but was essentially like, I didn't talk to any of these guys before they made this video. This video is the first time seeing of this technology. Like, I am very anti-AI. I hate what this looks like. I would never have signed off on this. So ever since then, he deleted that. And now, like, he's been a little bit quiet. So who knows what's going to be happening at Digital Foundry from this. But I imagine there's going to be at least some discussion to be had between some of the members there. Hopefully, Nvidia and the gaming public at large are seeing this immediate backlash and will be taking it to heart. But let's go ahead and move on, because we're already running a little behind on the news here. Okay. But we'll move on to our next bit of news, and this involves Mega Man's voice actor Ben Diskin. So some of you may know that Mega Man has had a voice for a while, and the guy who's been playing him is Ben Diskin, who will not be returning for Mega Man Dual Override. And he has cited problems with the contract. He said that the new game is a non-union game that is happening with Capcom. And he basically said, if we're not going to sign the SAG-AFTRA contracts that everyone will know that the actors went on strike last year and the year before for quite a bit of time against these video game companies, signed an agreement, got it all ready to go, and it seems like Capcom is not necessarily reneging on that agreement. They're deciding not to go with SAG contracts for this one. So he basically was like, that's a no-go for me. And I think basically citing the idea that, they could be using the voice and its likeness in other projects using AI and stuff like that.
Yep.
So this has led to SAG-AFTRA issuing a do not work order for Capcom right now. So we'll see how that affects any future projects that have mocap or voice acting in them. But yeah, I don't know if there's too much more to add on this right now, but it seems like Mega Man will be getting a new voice actor going forward. And good on Ben Diskin, I think, for making this public. And I think the best way that you can force the hand of these companies is to make a stink about it online, right?
Yeah.
That's what I found with union organizing myself when I did that at my last job. But I don't know if you had any thoughts on this.
No, just, I'm in line that, I saw that and, good for him for standing up. I know that, I think I read that Capcom said that, they would essentially, they put something in the contract like, oh, no, don't worry, we won't use AI. But, the whole idea with the union is that if they violate that, now it's you against the company. It's like, good luck against their lawyers, whereas if you're unionized and now, you've got, the union has your back,
Right.
So it's good for him.
Yeah.
And I know that, it's tough. Gotta be tough,
Absolutely
situation to be in, but
no,
I don't blame him.
I agree 100%. I know there was some other voice actor news as well. I think the guy who played the original Talking Flower in the first version of Mario Wonder had a different voice actor play him later on, I think, because he's really busy.
Interesting.
And so the new update replaces all his lines. It's just a bummer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess to keep it consistent with like Mario Tennis and all the new stuff.
I guess.
Because he was, a very in-demand actor. But lots of crazy stuff happening in video games with voiceover right now. Hopefully some of this gets sussed out. It's just like, why was everybody striking for so long if these issues are still persisting, But anyway, we'll follow this story as it progresses and if SAG-AFTRA has anything more to say about the video game industry. But we're going to end our news section here with some news that will lead us into our main topic. And this involves Google and Android. This has been something that's actually been percolating over the last few months, but I figured that now would be a good time to talk about it as we're getting into our Android and AYN Thor discussion. And that is that Google has decided to install a new system in place for app developers that basically requires them to have a verification system in order to have their apps working on Android devices. Now, if this is starting to sound a little bit like some other phone company, then you would be correct, because this is how Apple and iOS works. If you want to play anything on iOS, there is no quote unquote side loading unless you jailbreak your iPhone, right? Which is a very difficult process these days. This is something that Android has been known for a long time. It's like if you have something that's not on the Google Play Store, you could always just go to GitHub or go to some website, download an APK file and install it yourself. I think that's been one of the main reasons that people have chosen Android devices over iOS devices. But it does seem that Google is going to be changing that come September of 2026. There has been quite a bit of a pushback on this. There is a whole website that I believe is called Keep Android Open right now that you can visit that will explain a lot of how this is working and ways that you can contact people to try to get enough of a stink raised about this. But a lot of people make apps for Android that aren't on the Google Play Store. And I think if you have a device that has Google Play services installed on it, all those apps will just no longer work anymore, right? So this has got people really worried, especially in the Android emulation scene. But I'd love to know if you have any thoughts on this, especially now that you've been getting more into the AYN Thor.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was, isn't that a big reason why people choose Android, because of the flexibility and the openness? I think that would take away one of the big selling points of their platform.
Totally.
For one. But even if you're not an Android user, I would think that you'd still be pushing for that to be open, just because that puts pressure on Apple to do the same. If Android's closed down, what reason does Apple have to change? what reason, that they're following the Apple model, and then that's just going to be the standard. Whereas, I would hope it'd go the other way. And you look at it, even from, not just a, perspective of, personal, but, look at, in authoritarian countries where there's a lot of pressure to remove unwanted apps.
Sure.
And if the only spot you can get those apps from is the App Store, that gives those governments a lot more control over their people, so it's not a good thing, not at all.
That's a good point. I hadn't even really thought about it in that way.
Yeah, it's not good. So, I mean, it's hopefully, I think that Google said that there's going to be some kind of a workaround or something, but I don't think they've given any details.
They have not. Really. Yeah, it's like a flow system, I think they called it.
Yeah. Advanced flow or something.
Yeah, so it's really hard to say how this is going to work. But yeah, like you said, I think for the vast majority of people, I think this would affect the vast majority of Android users because they are using Google certified devices that have the Play Store and have all the Google Play services installed, right? So, for people that are just looking to buy a phone, I think this is going to push a lot more people to iOS, right? And to iPhones because, if you're looking for something that's more user-friendly and is a walled garden, it's just like Apple is going to be that for the vast majority of people, right? And I think, not that, everybody who's getting an Android phone is, installing stuff off of the Google Play Store, but I mean, I do that all the time, like not just with my Android handhelds, but just with my phone, like there are apps that aren't on the Play Store that I use. There's a lot of times that apps get taken off of the Google Play Store, and then there are backups that you can find online. So obviously Google wants to have more control over this, and I think they really want to make sure that they can control any kind of third-party stores and app stores that are available. Like there's definitely
I think they got scared from the whole Epic Fortnite thing. I think it kind of opened up the possibility that, like someone could make a competing app store here, and we could get, squeezed out of the money that we're getting. So I think that that's a huge driver of this.
Total. Somebody needs to write a book at some point about the Epic Fortnite Apple saga, because the ripple effects that it has had on technology are vast, right? And it is only really just starting, right? And or it's been really percolating for the last few years, and I think is really now starting to show its face in the many ways that it is really becoming a problem for the future of systems in general and these tech systems.
Yeah, I've heard that Google even they had something called Project Hug. Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
So they actually have an agreement with 22 game developers, and they're giving them cash payments and other benefits in exchange to not release their games on any platform other than the Play Store.
Right.
They're paying out, millions of dollars to these companies to, just stay on the Play Store, just stay here, So there's a lot of under the table stuff going on that, I don't think gets reported on.
This is coming right after the news as well that I think Google is selling Google Fiber or is merging with another company as well. I use Google Fiber, so that's a real distressing thing for me to hear. Google Fiber is by far the best ISP I've ever had. And I can only imagine, as we see with any time there's a merger and acquisition, quality drops, people lose their jobs, it gets more expensive, right? So not looking forward to that. I do think, obviously, as we said, apps that aren't Google Play certified and don't use the Google Play stuff, Android is still around. You could still have an old version of Android running this stuff, right? But I think for the vast number of people out there, that's going to be really problematic. And for me, it's really convenient that I can open up my Thor and go to the Google Play Store and download YouTube and all the apps that I have on my phone as well, in addition to all the emulators and whatever that I put on from non-Google Play sources. But anyway, we're going to be following this story as it progresses. Like we said, there is pushback right now, and we'll really know, I guess, when this happens in September, what the full extent of this will be. But I think we're going to go ahead right now and take a small break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking here with Deeb all about the AYN Thor, Android handhelds, and the future of handheld gaming right after this break. And we are back here with Deeb to talk all about the AYN Thor, a device that I think both of us are pretty obsessed with, and Android handhelds at large. I'm just going to start this by saying I love this freaking thing. I can't stop playing it. It is such a great device. I think over the last couple of weeks, I've played it a little bit less because I'm reading a really fat book right now. But the AYN Thor, if you've not heard of this thing, is a really, really slick little device. It is a clamshell Android handheld, very much in the style of a 3DS or a 3DS XL. This is a device that has two OLED screens, can play games really well, especially DS and 3DS games run flawlessly, upscaled. It can also play Switch games natively emulated. It can also play Steam games natively, run through an app called Game Native. So there's a lot that this device is capable of, and it is a very exciting time to be an Android handheld fan. So yeah, all of that said, I really, really love this device. We'll be getting a lot more into the nitty gritty on some of the cool features and things we love about this thing, but I want to throw it to you first. I think I met you because I saw you were posting Thor content, or maybe you saw I was posting Thor content. I don't know how we became mutuals, but it's like, definitely, I know that you've been obsessed with this thing as well. Can you tell me some of your takeaways with the device and what you like to do on it?
Oh man, like I like to do everything on it. You know, like what don't I like to do on this thing? Like I didn't buy it expecting that. You know, I bought this expecting this would make a good DS and 3DS handheld. You know, it'd be open up that, and I didn't expect to do a whole lot more than that. But my God, there's like so much you can do with this thing. It's the multitasking and the stream. Like I've streamed from my PC, my desktop PC to it. I've you know, you could watch a YouTube video on one screen while you know, play games down on the other. The OLED displays are beautiful. You know, they make really amazing. Make any game look amazing.
Yeah.
So much you can do with this thing. Like it's actually like become I would almost call it my primary console at this point, you know, and maybe it's just like a honeymoon period. I've had it for like a month, but I just, you know, don't see any reason not to play almost anything that I can play on this thing on it.
Yeah.
It's so flexible.
I find that I feel like I'm just out of the honeymoon period with it, right? And when I say that, you know, I'm not saying that I'm not playing it still anymore. I'm just not in that mode where I'm like, I fucking love this because it's my new toy and it's all I want to do. Is play with my new toy, right?
Sure.
And so I think, but what I am doing now is I'm playing it more practically, right? So it's like, you know, I'm playing through games on Steam that I would much rather play in a smaller form factor than I would want to lug out my Steam Deck for. And don't get me wrong, I still play games on my Steam Deck, and there are games that I prefer to play on my Steam Deck as well. But I think that there's a lot of stuff that just makes a lot more sense to play on here. And I think that also, you know, when it comes to like Switch emulation, you know, there are even ways in which this thing is kind of better than a Switch 2 in some fashions for some of the games I want to play. Like for instance, you know, you've got on the background behind you, you've got Mario RPG, the Switch remake of that game. You know, if you want to play that in 1080p handheld, you can't. Even with your Switch 2, which is a 1080p screen. Like it's going to be playing the, you know, the handheld 720p version on your Switch 2, right? But with the Thor, you know, you could play that in docked mode with the OLED screen in 1080p handheld, right? So
it's a better experience.
Yeah, there are better experiences to be had, right? And I think, you know, I think like you said too, I think a lot of what people get this for, and the reason I got it was for dual screen emulation, right? Because I've always said that, you know, I really think that the like 3DS emulation and like DS emulation on anything that doesn't have the form factor of a DS, I just don't like to do it. You know, I just never have dug it. It's like, it feels cumbersome. It feels wrong. So many games, you know, something will happen on the bottom screen and then move up to the top screen. And when you're playing with those screens side by side, it's just not a fun experience to play games like that were made for that form factor. So when I found this thing, I was like, oh, this will play anything I throw at it. And it's like, finally, you know, I can play some of these games in a much better way. Cause, you know, I have a modded 3DS and I enjoy my modded 3DS. It's a very great device. I'm not saying you should sell your 3DS if you have one in order to get the Thor necessarily, but you really see when you have this thing in your hand how low of a resolution and how dim those 3DS screens are compared to this. And I think it does make it a lot better. But I've been finding so many more use cases other than just what I went in to buy it for, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you know, the 3DS gaming on it too is I've barely even done that, you know, because I bought this thing, and like you said, when you got it, you know, you're into the period where you're getting into the games. When I've gotten handhelds before in the past, I've always spent a lot of time setting them up and, you know, downloading ROMs and getting things, you know, running on there. But this one, I just immediately wanted to play. Like, there's
Right.
something about this. Like, I just immediately jumped into Mario RPG, and just the fact that that ran on this thing, like you said, in the full docked profile, you know, on an OLED screen. Like, I just wanted to play it. I just sat there, you know, for 6 hours and just played, you know, Mario RPG, and it was just um I did not expect Switch to run on this when I bought it. You know, I didn't. I was hopeful that I might be able to run Wii U, but I've actually found Switch runs better than Wii U, and I guess it's because of the ARM processor.
It's I think it's some of it's because of the ARM processor, but also I just think Switch emulation on Android is further along
Yeah,
than
it could be that too.
Wii U is right now. You know, I think it's like you'll find that a lot of the stuff that this system has trouble with is not because the processor isn't fast enough or strong enough, but it's rather just people haven't caught up yet. You know, it's like I feel like emulation on Android is still a decently new thing. You know, I think it's really over the last, you know, emulation's been around for a long time with like the older consoles, but like, you know, we'll talk here in a little bit about PC emulation, Switch emulation, Wii U especially, Vita emulation, stuff like that. You know, I feel like those experiences are being bottlenecked by the developers of these emulators more so than it is by any hardware with the AYN Thor in particular.
Yeah, I guess people that have been along, you know, since this came out last fall have, you know, talked about how the Thor today is different than, you know, what Thor was 6 months ago or 5 months ago, whenever it came out, because of the software, you know, that's available now that wasn't available then. So I guess we're getting in maybe a little bit later, or I am, you know, now I'm jumping into here and I'm seeing the fruits of all these labors, you know, and it's just like, oh my God, there's so much to do on here.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, a lot of the developers have been, I know some of the emulators I use, they're like forks that are specifically made for dual screen. So I know that they've been releasing more of those. And so I've been seeing a lot of this. A lot of the work that's been put into this now, you know, by the community, and it's just amazing. Like, you know, the front ends, the experience, everything about it's just been amazing.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's something that we should definitely talk about, the front ends and whatnot. But you're right. I think before we get into that, it's like, you know, there was I feel like whenever the Ambernic 3.5 XXSP came out, a lot of people really latched onto that. I have one of those as well. It's a lot cheaper of a device than this was, but that one really took off as far as like getting a lot of people to buy it. But I think every once in a while, a device will come out that a lot of people pick up on, and it makes it much less niche of a product. Yeah, because people start actually developing stuff specifically for that device. And we're starting to see a lot of that right now, which is really cool. Like you talked about with the front ends, I think some of the coolest front ends that are out right now, you know, obviously we talked at length about in a previous episode about the ISU front end, which it was designed for Android devices in general, but I think specifically had eyes set on the Thor. And I think, you know, they had some setbacks with the development team on that. And I think the creator of ISU kind of got soft canceled. And they're still working on that front end. But I think another one has come up in the meantime that a lot of people are using. I don't know if you're using this, but I certainly am. And it's the Cocoon launcher.
I'm using that. Yep.
Yeah. And it's really makes it a very smooth dual screen launcher experience where you can have all of your, you know, consoles on the bottom screen, and then on the top, some really nice splash art that you scrape that shows every game that you have. You can put games on the home screen, very similar to a 3DS and whatnot. So I think, you know, a lot of new things are coming out that just make this a much more palatable experience. It's not like you can do all this stuff just out of the box. There is a lot of setup involved, right? But I do think that because the community is all kind of rallying around this one device, you're seeing just so much support that you don't see with a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, it's you know, you definitely, it's not at a stage where I'd recommend this to, you know, somebody who wasn't familiar with, you know, setting up emulators, who didn't like tweaking and getting into you know, different settings and getting deep into the games, you know, but you know, some of the stuff it starts right up, but you know, the 3DS, the Switch emulation, a lot of that stuff, it takes some time, you know, and you gotta, you know, download drivers, you gotta, you know, set the profiles, you gotta figure out, you know, the settings, but once everything clicks, you know, it just works.
Yeah.
And, you know, that, like you said, that Cocoon interface really seals it too, because it's a very Nintendo-like, you know, interface. So,
And user-friendly
It makes
as
the
well.
experience very palatable. You know,
Mhm.
you open it up, it's just like you got your your little folders there. You pick your game, and then it's playing. You know, it's like you got to put in the work ahead of time, but once it's done, the experience is great. And I think, like you said, because of the popularity of this system, I have to assume that the setup experience will probably become more streamlined too.
Mhm.
And once that does, I mean, it'd be hard to tell anybody not to get this once it's set up, because yeah, it's so versatile.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, there's just a lot that you can do with Android just in general, right? To customize your experience. And then I think with these front ends and a lot of the new effects and community stuff that's been coming out, it really streamlines the process. You say it's hard not to recommend this to people, and we've only really gotten into some of the features here, and we could talk a little bit more about it. But I do want to talk about just the fact that this is an expensive device, and I think that we need to talk about that. I think that the cheapest model of the Thor is $250, which I would not recommend you get. I think the very cheapest model of the system is a much slower processor and is not going to be playing a lot of the games that you can play with the rest of them, right? But I think once you get to the second model, which is, I guess, the base, they call it the base model. There's the base, the Pro, and the Max, right? And basically the main difference between those three models are storage space that you have on there and RAM, right? I know I personally have the Pro model. Do you have the Max model? Is that what you have?
Yeah, I went with the Max. I was looking at the Pro, and then if I was gonna, the price of a 1 terabyte SD card was putting it right into that territory, so I just went for the the high-end one. But
absolutely.
But if you already have a micro SD available, I think you more than be able to run everything on the Pro one.
Totally. Yeah. So I have the Pro
like
model.
Gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah, the 12. The Pro model has 12 gigabytes of RAM and 256 gigs onboard storage. I do have a terabyte SD card in here as well. I got that because SD cards are modular and you can put them in other devices if you want and whatnot, right? Then there's also the Max model has 16 gigs of RAM and is 1 terabyte. But as you can see here, the AYN Thor Pro model right now has actually had some price increases that got bumped up to $399 right now. So $400 for this console is pretty steep. I know the Max will put you back even more at this point for $490. I got the Pro when it was, I think, $350 is what I paid for it.
I paid $429 for the Max in mid-January. So it's gone up. I think there's been 2 price increases since then.
Yeah. So that's a bummer to see. I was definitely in on the early bird pricing whenever I got this device. And it does take a while for these things to ship. So definitely if you are interested in one of these things, be aware of that. I know it comes in like a few different color models. You've got the rainbow model. Which model do you have, by the way?
It's the rainbow one. I think the Super Famicom looking one.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I have the black model myself. I got the black one because the OLED screens kind of fade into the black, and it's like whenever you have a game that has
exact aspect ratio on like the Wii U and 3DS. So I did notice. I was like, I kind of had some regrets there. Kind of wishing that I would have gone with that. But.
Yeah, it's like the bottom screen is like a little bit taller than the actual like 3DS bottom screen, so it doesn't quite fill it. So with the black version, it kind of melts into that, and you can't really see it. But I do think the rainbow model is very attractive. I think that is a good looking system for sure. But yes, this is an expensive device, and I think that it is worth talking about that. This is not something like, say, for instance, there's another dual screen Android handheld that's made by Ambernick that's like $100 that you can get.
Yeah.
But it really tops out at DS games. Like, it does not play 3DS games, and it's not going to obviously be playing Steam or anything like that, right? So I think just getting into this, you're getting something that's more akin to a Steam Deck than you are, what Android emulation handhelds to be up until this point, right? So if you think about it in that way, I do think that it's quite a bit of bang for your buck, and I really enjoy this device for that purpose. But let's talk a little bit about PC emulation, because this is something going into this that I was not really anticipating would be like a major use case of this device for me, right? And that is that, yes, this thing will just run Steam games. And not only this, but Android devices in general now have a number of apps that are available. One of them is Game Hub. Another is called Game Native. That's the one that I use most.
Same.
Right. And it'll hook right up to your Steam profile and run Steam games natively, like through an emulation layer, very similar to how Proton works on Steam Deck.
Yep. And I was running Cyberpunk 2077 on this thing just to see if I could, because everything I tried, I started off with something simple. I was like, okay, let me try the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, was one of the first ones I tried. I'm like, okay, that worked. I was like, let me try the Klonoa remake, okay, that worked, and I just kept like, okay, well, what can't this thing handle, and I kept stepping it up, and I'm like, okay, well, it can't run Cyberpunk, there's no way. Run Cyberpunk, and it's playable. It was like 20 frames a second, and I'm saying it's not a great experience, but it was playable. Cyberpunk on this Android handheld.
Yeah, I've seen people playing Final Fantasy VII Remake totally fine on it, which is crazy. I know that's a very well optimized game, but just like playing that on something that looks like a 3DS is kind of
yeah, it's insane. And it's like the PC games. I feel like I have about a 50% success rate when I you install the game and you go to boot it. It doesn't usually boot up about half the time. And usually there's a couple that I've gotten now used to, okay, let me try this setting, this driver, and that fixes it probably about into the 80-90% of the range. And there's only been about 10% of the games that I just couldn't get working and or I gave up on. I might have been able to get them work, but just looking at it, like I totally had no expectation of being able to do anything like this when I got the system, and being able to run games, I was playing Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Rising Revengeance.
Like the Steam version.
60 frames a second. Yeah. It runs perfectly. Like how is that possible? Like I just had no idea.
Yeah, it's some
amazing.
dark magic, man. I really don't understand exactly how the technology is working, but like I said, it's a emulation layer very similar to Proton, where every time that you install a game through Game Native, it is setting up essentially a whole version of Windows specifically for that game. You know what I mean? That's kind of like emulating Windows just for that, right? So it'll have a C folder and then the Steam folder, and it has this whole folder structure that's built in every time you install it. Very similar to how Proton works.
Yep, you can open the little I don't remember what they call it, but the environment for each game if you need to modify files or do anything like that.
Right.
You can do that.
So that's something cool that you can do there. But I think in addition to that, I think something that I really like about Game Native specifically is it has, again, a lot of community support. And something that I've been seeing with this app is it'll have this own little verified system within it. It'll tell you this game has been tested. It's been tested on this device, and people have made specific launch profiles for these games. So if you're having issues opening a game, you can just go into the settings, click, play this device's supported settings, and then it'll just download whatever's been uploaded by other people that have an AYN Thor, right?
That's my default. When I install a new game, I just download that.
I'm still delighted every time it happens, right? And I think that there's also so many instances that I found recently where I'm like, oh, I want to bring this device with me instead of my Steam Deck, right? Like when I'm traveling, I don't even travel with a Switch anymore or or a Steam Deck. It's like if I'm in another city and I know I'm going to be taking the public transit or the bus or the subway, I don't always feel totally comfortable pulling out a Steam Deck, or maybe I don't want to bring a backpack with me, right? The fact that this thing can fit into my pocket and then I can pull it out and pick up where I was playing a game on my Steam Deck just like that is a game changer, right? And Switch games even, right? It's like having something that's a lot more portable than a Switch to play those games, of course, that you own already. We're not endorsing piracy in any way, but it's like, if you own the game, put it on there. It's a lot better of an experience a lot of times, right?
Yeah, and it's like I love the Steam Deck. I love how you're able to emulate just about everything on it. But it's so big. That was a thing where it pretty much stays regulated to my nightstand. That's where I usually play it, is in bed. It's just too big, to really bring places. But this thing, like you said, I put right in my front pocket. And it's amazing. And I have to think that you see a lot of the PC gaming handhelds. The ROG Ally, that type of stuff. Like I would think with what's happening here with Android that, in the future, I would think a lot of those might move to, this kind of a platform. I think the battery life, the efficiency, and everything's going to be a lot better than what you're going to see in the PC world. So
Yeah.
I think this is kind of the future of portable PC gaming.
Totally. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that is definitely something we should move on to. We're getting to the point now where the Steam Deck is about 4 or 5 years old at this juncture. And, it is, as most of us know, the Steam Deck is just really a handheld PC. It's running Linux. And, it is bulky and it's thick and it's got lots of processes going on in it that allow for it to do what it needs to do. But that said, it's also getting a little bit long in the tooth at this point, and people are wondering what their next system is going to be like. I don't think Valve is really fucking with that right now because they've got more than enough on their plate with the machine and the upcoming frame, the headset. But something we did learn about whenever they were revealing the headset, the VR headset that they're launching, is that is using ARM architecture as well, just like an Android device, right? And a lot of these games are going to be running natively on the the VR games will be running natively on the headset, so that is going to be, again, a layer of compatibility between PC releases and this ARM-based architecture of the headset. So you really have to think that Valve might be incorporating this into their next console. Can you see them going with architecture like this, maybe keeping it Linux but doing the Android style device?
Yeah, after using it, yeah. I know that they've kind of been waiting for some kind of a breakthrough to do some Steam Deck 2 or something, and I could see this offering either substantially more battery life or power than what's available on the x86 the PC chips that they're using. So yeah, I after using this, like I have to think this is going to be the future for portable PC gaming.
I think it's also going to solve that problem of portability, right? I think more than anything, I don't know that people necessarily want like a ton more power with their Steam Deck. And I don't even think that like Valve is trying to make a super powerful console. I think that's why they're making the Steam machine in the first place, is to like have something that can communicate with your console, maybe stream to it, but I think it really feels like they want to move to something that's a lot more convenient for their family of systems, that they're trying to build an ecosystem, right? And so I think having something that's a little more low key, a little more pocketable, a little more, not that, I doubt whatever they make is going to fit in your pocket, right? But I think, with stuff like this, you almost kind of don't need it. I think this third-party stuff is kind of taking the place of it, right?
Yeah, and you know what it can't run natively? You can stream. This thing has Wi-Fi 7 on it too. Like one of the first things I did was stream from my gaming PC, and 120 frames per second on that top screen. I'm able to stream it over my Wi-Fi, and it's near indistinguishable from running natively. So it's if you have a PC or something like Steam Machine or whatever, is going to be available out there. I know the consoles have support for streaming as well. It'll handle all that, and that experience has gotten a lot better too. If you've tried, streaming, over Wi-Fi in your house, 5 years ago, versus now, it's improved, significantly.
Well, yeah, I can definitely see that happening. What about like Nintendo? Obviously this device is taking a lot of cues from Nintendo, and obviously from the past, it's really copying that form factor of the clamshell handheld and whatnot. Nintendo's really been digging their heels in with the Switch, hardware and that whole form factor and what they're doing there. Like, do you see them ever kind of dipping back into this? Do you think the emulation Android scene will ever have any effect on what Nintendo's doing? Or do you think they're going to be holding the line?
I've been a Nintendo fan long enough to know that it's futile to try to predict anything they're going to do. Nintendo's going to do what Nintendo's going to do. Right. They're going to do the least expected thing. Look at the Virtual Boy they just released. Yeah. I feel like they're going to march to the beat of their own drum. But using this reminds me of what I miss about weird Nintendo hardware. The Switch is dangerously close to, being, similar to the other handheld PCs that are out there. But this is offering something that's, that you kind of realize like, oh, I miss this, I miss this dual screen. I miss this setup, and so I would hope that, Nintendo goes back to their next console is a little weird, do something totally unexpected, do something weird. That's what I love about Nintendo. That's what I love about being a fan, is that you can't really predict what they're going to do next. But I'm just glad that this Thor is available to kind of scratch that itch for now that, we haven't necessarily had from, Nintendo themselves this generation.
Yeah. I agree. And I think it does kind of, I think it's pushing everything kind of in an interesting way, because we're now, I think we will be seeing in the next, 5 to 10 years with the console race, a lot more emphasis on bespoke handhelds again. I think for a long time, we were in this era where, the cell phone, the smartphone came out, and it was like, I think that's what kind of made Nintendo be like, okay, well, we're not going to really work on the 3DS anymore, right? Just because people have phones. And you see a lot of stuff now that you would have seen with a dual screen device, like say the Zelda Notes app for Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild.
Yep.
They just put what would have been a second screen functionality or something that you would have seen with like the gamepad on the Wii U. They just put that on a different device now. You know what I mean? And so you could tell their heart is still in those kinds of experiences, but they just kind of gave up working on it, because they're like, well, everybody has a phone. They're not going to like buy a specific device just for this anymore. It's just like not going to happen, right? But I think that's changing. And I think that really Valve shook it up with the Steam Deck. I think a lot of this started with Valve, and then we've been seeing movement in the emulation handheld scene for a while. But now that we're seeing these like really strong and capable Android handhelds coming out, you see Sony talking about how their next console is probably going to have a handheld variant. You've got Xbox, making a Xbox branded ROG Ally, working with ROG there. So or Asus, I suppose. So it's like, we're really getting into this, I think people are getting really tired of being, slaves to doom scrolling on these little rectangles. Right. And I think that like having something that you can put your attention into, maybe while you're watching something on the TV or, putting your kid to bed or whatever, right? Like handheld gaming is coming back in a big way. And I think that, the emulation scene really has a lot to do with that as well.
Yeah. And like, I've always been a fan of, we're what, Zennials or whatever you call it. And
yeah, sure.
We grew up in an era where, every 3 or 4 years, technology would just completely change. You look at, what you had available in 1993 to 1999, it was only like a 6-year period, but, you went from, the Super Nintendo to the Sega Dreamcast, in 6 years.
Yeah.
It's just insane, and now text has, there's been diminishing returns on the high end. I mean, I guess you got DLSS for, whatever. But, it's like now you got, this type of stuff to me brings back that joy of, in the 90s when, things were changing quickly, and I love, that's one thing I love about the handheld space and the portables is that, you see these changes, it's like, oh, wow. Like, I forgot my first emulation handheld. Well, okay. Have you heard? Okay. Well, the Tapwave Zodiac, have you heard of this device? The Tapwave Zodiac. Okay. This is in 2004, right? It was a Palm Pilot based device that ran emulators. So I'm sitting there, in my college classes playing Chrono Trigger on it, and it ran at like 15 frames a second or something. So, this is something that like I wanted for a long, long time. And I don't think it was until 2020, you started seeing the Ambernick devices and other things where, they could handle most of those 16-bit systems. And then of course the PSP, you could hack those and emulate on them. But it wasn't until probably about 5 years ago that, you started seeing these, reasonably priced devices, handhelds available that could emulate. And like, look at where we've come from then to now, in 5 years, like it's gone from like, oh, cool, this thing can run, PlayStation 1 pretty well to, I'm emulating, Switch on this thing, and and the price has gone up a little bit, but that's the capabilities just changed, like in a way that you don't see anymore, in the mainstream hardware. And that's that for me is what I miss about, technology is like that excitement, that dopamine hit of just like, oh man, like every year it's something new. Every, you follow the store, you find out new emulators that are dropping, new front ends that are dropping, I love that, that quick, satisfying, experience of just always having something new to play, something different. Like it's you don't see that in a lot of spaces anymore.
Yeah,
so
that's what I really love about this. That's a great point. It is like console gaming has stagnated to this point where it's just not exciting anymore. And
No,
games take so long to come out that it's like, it's a lot of games have like 5 to 8 year fucking development cycles. That's the length of a piece of hardware. That's like the lifespan of like, the PS5. By the time the PS6 comes out, there will have been like maybe 15 games that were made specifically for the PS5. And so it's like
GTA 5, that was what, a PS3 game?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that spanned 3 generations.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that, you're right in that the excitement is in the handheld scene. It's just a shame that it's coming at this time where it's getting more and more expensive and more difficult to actually make this hardware and actually find the components that you need for this stuff, And I think, with this like AI arms race that's happening right now with all these data centers being built, and then also stuff about Google starting to shut down things, it's almost like the tech and the willingness and what people want to do are only being held back by corporations at this time, and I have to think that is by design. It's not like they're specifically like, we're going to put these, cheap Chinese handhelds in their place, but it is very much like, I think what the big tech companies and what the gaming company CEOs and heads of a lot of these studios want right now is they want walled gardens. They want to keep you inside their environments. That's why Google Play only wants you to do stuff that is verified by them. That's why Sony is getting out of PC. That's why we're seeing all these strict limitations being put in. And I think what Android can do right now and what these handhelds prove is that, people want to be able to tinker. They want to be able to install whatever they want. They want to be able to play their game backups. They want to be able to do what they want with the devices that they put their $400 into, right? Because these things aren't cheap. And so it's like, when you have it, you want to be able to really make it your own. And I think that's what's exciting to me about the future of Android emulation handhelds is just all the customizability, and like you said, it's exciting. It's something new. It's something fresh. And I think I just really hope that we see a lot more of that going in the future. And that's why I really hope a lot of this Google stuff that we talked about earlier, hopefully a lot of people are just really worried about this in terms of phones. And we see some of this not happening so much with these bespoke handhelds. But I don't know if you have anything you want to say about that as we're wrapping this topic up.
Yeah, no, it's just like I said, my experience with the Thor has really opened my eyes to a lot of what's possible on Android. I've always known that, that you could, you had a lot more available for, installing applications that were outside of the Google Play Store. But, using a Thor, I'm just like, oh my, like you can play PC games on this. You can, you can install this stuff. You can do alternate app stores and all, and it just seems so fun and exciting. And like, I've never, all of a sudden, it's like that meme, you got the iPhone, all of a sudden I'm looking over at the Android, like, hey, this looks pretty good. And then, it's like, and all of a sudden now they're like, no, we're going to lock it down, and it's just like, what? Like, this is just right when it's, all of a sudden getting so exciting right now to me. It seems like, it's fortuitous timing, but, hopefully there'll still be options. From what I've seen, I think that, they can do alternate bootloaders, alternate, softwares. I don't think this will affect the handhelds too much. At worst case, you lose access to the Play Store, which on these handhelds, okay.
I'm not using it that often. Yeah, I can find workarounds.
It's kind of surprising when you can find an emulator that's on the Play Store. It's like, I've been using Obtainium and other things, but
right.
But yeah, I mean, as far as the phones go, like, it's good for nobody, none of the users. So, hopefully it won't affect, these handhelds, but really hope, Android keeps what makes them, a good option for people. It's what makes the platform appealing.
I agree. Well, this has been a great conversation. I feel like there's, still, I think we only really scratched the surface on what is possible with this device. But this was a little bit more of a deeper conversation about the future of handheld gaming and Android in general. But if you're interested in this, definitely check it out. I mean, you could also reach out to myself or Deeb, I would assume, because one thing I know about people that have this device is they love to talk about this device, right? And it's, it can be a little bit daunting sometimes to set up if you get a new one, but there are tons of resources for you out there. I know like YouTube has so many content creators that are making content around the AYN Thor specifically right now. And there are tons of really just step-by-step walkthroughs on setting up all your emulators, getting everything running, getting a front end going, right? So there's no shortage of resources for you if you are interested in these kinds of devices. And I think that, as this market evolves, we'll only see more and more of that as this goes. And I think as more of these corporations try to lock down a lot of their systems, we'll just keep seeing more and more pushback in these different ways. So that makes me excited as a little shit kicker that I am. And I like to see people get put in their place every once in a while.
Yeah, it's very punk rock.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. If you want to be a real punk, spend $400 on this Chinese company. But I think, what do you think, listener? Are you interested in the AYN Thor? Do you have one already? Are you just somebody that's going around the YouTube algo and checking out every AYN Thor video that you could possibly find? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. What do you think about the future of Android? Do you think that all of this news with Google is going to have any issues with Android emulators going forward? Definitely let us know, and we'll be sure to shout you out on next week's episode. But I think with all of that out of the way, we're going to take one final break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the games we've been playing recently. So I've been playing a lot of the same stuff that I was playing last week, if I'm honest. I think the game that I've been playing the most of is still Pokopia. I've been really, really, really loving this game. I mean, it's like I keep saying, I am so surprised by it. I did not expect to be as into this game as I am, but it's just really scratching that itch, man. It's like the first cozy game, like farming sim style game that I've played where I'm starting to really understand what is so appealing about this genre, right? And I think
did you play Dragon Quest Builders?
I did not.
Have you ever played those games?
No. I'm sure I would love those too if I liked this.
I think so.
Yeah, because I know it's very, very similar. But yeah, it's great stuff. The gameplay loop is just so addictive, and I've been really into my time, and I can't wait to play more. I'll probably play more whenever we stop doing this episode because I'm getting a little obsessed with it. Other than that, I've been continuing to play fitness boxing, Fist of the North Star. I'm trying to get my blood pumping at least once a day. Didn't do it today, but like I said, I was a zombie today, so I'm giving myself a little bit of grace on that. But I'm trying to get pumped up, so I'm playing fitness boxing, Fist of the North Star, and it's a lot of fun. I'm getting to the point where I'm actually doing a lot more like weaves and ducking and stuff like that. And actually the other night, I feel like I did one too many, fucking squats and kind of threw my knee out at the end of that bachelorette party, but feeling a lot better right now. But now I know what to avoid when playing fitness boxing.
So is that a VR game?
No, it's a Switch game. So
it's a Switch game. So you hold the Joy-Cons and you
hold the Joy-Cons and you punch.
Okay.
It's not like super accurate. It's really you could just waggle for every time, but you're not going to do that. The whole point is you're trying to work out, right? So it's but it does a pretty good job of like knowing when you've done the right.
Yeah, I got to check this out. It seems interesting.
Yeah, I think it might be delisted now.
Really?
I mean, there's a bunch of fitness boxing games.
Okay.
But they go through them with licenses. I know there's also a Hatsune Miku fitness boxing game. I know that's out. I just know I got Fist of the North Star on like a deep discount. And I was like, I think it's because they're going to be removing this game. But I've also, obviously, I'm always playing fucking Tetris 99. Tetris 99 is, I think, one of the best games of all time. But I've gotten really into playing it again. It's like literally the only thing I play when I'm pooping now. And when I'm not as well. Like when I have anything on the TV, like the first thing I want to do is play Tetris 99. It's just crazy that I've been playing this game for like 8 years straight and it has not lost its luster at all. I will say though, over the last week, I've won like 2 or 3 games and your boy's getting it back again because it kind of goes through periods where like, there are lots of really good players now. So it's
anybody who's still like playing that's got to be dedicated.
Exactly, right? So it's like whenever I get a win, I feel like extra powerful, right? Whenever I play that game these days. So that's really exciting. And then lastly, I do want to give a shout out to Hog from our Discord, Josh from Chicago. We played a little bit of Slay the Spire 2 in co-op, which was a lot of fun. So I've only done the co-op right now with one other person, but I know Josh was trying to get some, extra people going. I think you can play up to 4 players co-op, and the game is still in early access, so I know some of the balance stuff might change and whatever down the line, but I'm having a ton of fun playing that game, and it's a lot of fun to play with other people. I don't think the first game had co-op, so this is really cool to play with a friend. It just does make the runs a lot slower because you're like talking through all your strats like as you're going, and you're really trying. Yeah. All the min-maxing you do in the normal game is like amplified like doubly.
Right, you gotta come up with a strategy and
yeah, exactly. But it's great, and it plays really well. And I've been playing on the Steam Deck, and it's really fun to just do voice chat through the Steam Deck right on Steam with each other. You can see everything the other person's doing as they play. It's been a lot of fun to play that game in co-op. But that's what I've been playing. What about you, Deep? What have you been playing recently?
I've been playing a whole lot of the Thor, which that if you have ADHD, it's a blessing and a curse, because it's like there's so much available. It's like you get that what do they call it, the paralysis of choice type of thing.
Yeah,
there's so much available.
Yeah.
But also, like, surprisingly, the dual screens, it's been nice because I've been able to throw a YouTube video on. So one of the things I was doing, Digital Foundry did a video recently about the Wave Race series, and I was watching that video on the top screen. And on the bottom screen, I was playing Wave Race Blue Storm for GameCube. So I'm playing along with the video. So I kind of got me back into that. I've been playing a lot of the Wave Race Blue Storm, which
I love that game.
It's challenging. It's and I like that. It's not the first one. I've got it down to muscle memory now. I can just first place. But the Blue Storm still gives a good challenge. So I've been tackling that one. I've been booting up every night and trying to do it. Few races and slowly improving. That's been a one I've been going to. A little bit of Super Mario Wonder, but the game I do want to shout out here that I've been playing on the Thor. It's a ROM hack of Final Fantasy Adventure, which is the Seiken Densetsu, the first Secret of Mana, the first Mana game, and so it's a ROM hack of that. It's called Embers of Mana, and it's available. You download it, and it's like a brand new Mana game, And I don't know, have you played Final Fantasy Adventure on the Game Boy?
No, that first Seiken Densetsu, I never did. I do know that it was like localized from Seiken Densetsu to Final Fantasy, even though has nothing to do with Final Fantasy, right?
A little bit. I think there's like chocobos in there. There's a little bit of there's a little bit of DNA, but I think it's its own thing. It's kind of like the Final Fantasy Legend games too. They were saga games.
Gotcha.
But this is great because it's like a brand new Mana game, and it's so close to it's simple, but it's fun. It's one of those games where there's not a lot of resistance, which I really like. For certain games, I just like throwing it open and just know what to do. I can level up, I can go to the next area, I can go through it. But it's interesting because they also took like the music from the Super Nintendo Secret of Mana, and they ported it back into the Game Boy. So you get these Game Boy chiptune versions of it. Yeah. It's so good.
That's really you playing that on the bottom screen while you got something on the top? Yeah.
Yep.
That's something that's nice about that bottom screen is it's really good for Game Boy. It fits the screen like almost perfectly.
Yep, it's perfect. And it's still OLED. They're both OLED. It's a nice display. You turn on those little like pixel filters and stuff, and it's perfect. Like I've got like a an analog pocket over here, which is technically the more accurate and better device. But I'm playing on the Thor, because I can throw a YouTube video up there on the top while I'm doing it, and it just and it's nice because that keeps me playing.
Yeah.
Now it's like it's keeps that both parts of my brain entertained, and I'm getting through it. So,
and anytime you're doing that, you're not doom scrolling as well, which is nice.
It's true. Yeah. Yep. And excellent ROM hack. I'm not a huge ROM hack person. I don't play a ton of them, but this is one of my favorite games, and I heard good things about it, and it's not disappointed. So, Embers of Mana, just search for that and give that a play if you haven't.
Very good. Anything else?
The other thing I want to shout out is just happy 30th anniversary to one of my favorite games of all time, Super Mario RPG. I played a bit of that. I got about halfway through it on the Thor until I wiped out my own save like an idiot.
Oh no!
But apparently, when you uninstall the Switch emulator, it deletes your saves. I mean,
good to know. Good to know. Yeah.
In hindsight, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, But I was trying to install an update to get Breath of the Wild working. I guess the latest patch isn't compatible when I patched Breath of the Wild on there, so. Right. I ended up uninstalling it. And I lost my save, but that's okay. I played this game I don't know how many times, but it was the 30th anniversary for the Japanese release last week.
That's right.
So it's been 30 years. It's still one of my favorite games, and I love the remake. I love the original. So I've been playing that, and it's just want to give a shout out. I couldn't come on here without shouting out Mario RPG. So
totally. Hell yeah.
I'm playing that. But other than that, a little bit of Pokopia, and then the other game I've been playing is Resident Evil Requiem.
Right.
Which I've been playing that on the Switch too, which is just an amazing port. I mean, if I didn't know, I'd think it was running on PlayStation 5.
Wow.
It's amazing.
DLSS is doing some heavy lifting on that, I guess.
Yeah, and it looks fantastic. Like, and it actually targets 60 frames a second.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very impressive. It's the most impressive game graphically I played on the Switch.
Wow.
Too. So great game. And then the game itself is just fun. It's just a throwback. It's a perfect throwback, a mix. I don't know if you've covered it on the show. It's a perfect mix.
No, I mean, that's one of my big blind spots is the Resident Evil franchise. Okay. I've never really gotten too into them. I've started Resident Evil 4 probably like 5 times. Yeah. And then it's like, I'm like you, where it's like really easy for me to pick up games and put them down and play something else. So it's like, and I know these aren't very long games. So it's like at some point I will have a sit down and actually play through like all the Resident Evil games.
I'll say this is a great one to jump into.
Really?
Like, yeah, this is a great one to jump into.
I'm not going to be lost with the story or anything like that?
No. It's its own kind of standalone. It has some characters from previous games, but it does introduce a new character. And it's a great because like they've done a really good job of alternating between like puzzle sections. You play kind of like puzzle sections where you have limited ammo as one character, and then it jumps over to the other character, and then it's the action chainsaw, zombie mowing down, and it goes back and forth, and it does that really well. The balance is really really good with that one. So
one day I'll get into it. I was the same with the Metal Gear Solid games for a long time. I'd never played any of them, and then one year I was like, this is the year of Metal Gear, and I like streamed all of the games, and I went from Twin Snakes all the way through to 5, and I just played them all like in sequence.
What's your favorite?
Much. Probably 2. But I also loved 4 a lot. Actually, I think I'm really excited.
Which is getting a re-release.
Yeah,
right?
it's getting a re-release on Switch and Switch 2, which is cool.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I had to borrow a friend's PS3 in order to play it because my PS3 had a broken disk drive, and then I tried to get into the store. It was a whole fucking saga. I'll let you go back and listen to that episode if you're interested in hearing more about that. But I think that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much, Deeb. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you very much to MilkyWay.co for doing our website. Thanks to Corduroy for doing our music. Thanks to all of our wonderful patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to find me online, I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Deeb? Where can people find you online?
I'm pretty much just on Blue Sky, Deeb, DEEB. bluesky.social.
Damn, you got the only Deeb on there.
I was an early, I was back in like 2023. I think I got in there early. I was ready to be done with Twitter. I was like, okay.
I'm in this.
I love the community down there. It's super chill. You know, I love it's got a really good retro gaming community. Just the gaming community in general, just no drama. Like it's pretty laid back, and I love that.
It's a simpler place, which is really nice every once in a while to get a little break.
It's nice. Like, it's I don't like going on, like you said, doom scrolling, getting on social media to get spun up because it's too easy. But with Blue Sky, that rarely happens.
I agree.
I'm on there, I got my buds. We're talking about what's cool. We're talking about what's good. Posting things. And, So feel free to follow me there if you want to, have any questions about the Thor experience, like setting up any of that stuff. Like I'm happy to help with it.
Totally. There you go. Deeb's a good resource. If you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Blue Sky and Twitter, at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We have a website, switchheadz.com. And as we said before, we've got our Patreon. We also have a Facebook group and a Discord. We would love to have you guys join the Discord. It's such a wonderful community of like-minded gamers, a very non-toxic group of folks that we have over there. Such a great place to continue the conversation from the podcast, meet up with friends to play games, and talk about all the latest news and politics as well. In the recent days, we've gotten a lot into world events, and it's a great place to stay informed and just blow off some steam with some friends. So join us over there on the Discord. We would love to have you. If you could also like and subscribe on YouTube, as we said. We'd love to have you follow us over there. I think YouTube, we put a lot of work into the video version of the show, and we'd love to have your patronage over there. Share us around if you could. You can also leave a review on Apple or Spotify these days, and share the show around with a friend. Word of mouth goes a really long way, and we would really appreciate that if you could. But that's it for the episode. We got another great one for you next week, so don't touch that dial. But in the meantime, gang, you guys know the drill. Be safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. It's up to you, but maybe consider dropping $400 on one of these dual screen devices. It's a good time. We can both vouch for it. Fuck ice. Free Palestine. We love you very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.